Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to Knox Makers. Today is Tuesday, the day of the week where, by tradition, we gather here in our classroom and hold show and share. We invite everyone to bring in projects that you're working on, projects that are wonderful successes and terrible failures, and projects that are still in progress. Whatever you're up to, we're interested in seeing it, and we've got several folks who have brought in neat things to show us today. First on the list is Joe, who has a precocious tomato.
Yes, in addition to microcontrollers, I make things from dirt. Uh, this is Pat, the tomato. And I've named it Pat because tomatoes are dioecious, means they're both boy and girl parts. And, you know, considering what's going on socially lately, I figured I would. But I'll drop that and move on. This is called a micro dwarf tomato. And what surprised me today, I'm growing them, I start my seeds under lights. I'll show you that in a minute. And I was looking on the tray in the back, and one of these tomatoes had blooms on it. It's 47 days old. These normally don't bloom until they're 90 days old. Okay, this guy doesn't get much bigger than this. It's, like I said, it's called a micro dwarf tomato. Let me show you some pictures. They will, oh wait, here, let's start with the light. Yeah. Yeah, so you see toward the back, I was peeking over there and I looked in the back and saw a bloom, and I was really surprised because I was timing this for them to go outside in about 3 weeks. And let's see, so that's kind of part of my lighting setup. In the winter, I grow lettuce there mainly. You can grow a lot of lettuce and microgreens in a place like that. Okay, and in fact, I've taken some of the lettuce from my trays out and planted them. You can plant lettuce in the cool season. As long as it doesn't get much below about 24, the lettuces will grow. And these are actually dwarf varieties of tomatoes. Lettuce. What did I say before? These are dwarf lettuces. And so you can get like a head lettuce that just perfectly fits a salad. So that's kind of cool. And this guy right here, the seed catalog showed it looking like that. Now, we won't get any bigger than that. That's 4 inches tall. But I kind of wondered about those tomatoes laying in front of it because, he could have gotten those anywhere. But I have actually grown one that looked like this. This is a tomato, is what it's called. And they're great at Christmas time, if you grow them indoors. The first micro dwarf tomatoes were invented, the Tiny Tim, and the same year I was invented, for the Christmas trade. It was bred in Florida, and they would put them in greenhouses, and then they would sell them over Christmas. I don't know why that didn't take off. I had never seen them in a store or anything. But these things are absolutely covered with tomatoes, and that guy will be doing that for 3 or 4 years if you keep it inside. They don't die of old age. They die because of the weather freezes them out. Okay, so that's part one. Part two. Uh-oh. Oh, I know what it is. I think I know. Here we go. Okay, part two. A while back, y'all may remember that in the sewing section, there were a bunch of racks up there that they took down in order to put the sewing section. And the lumber they took out, they piled up and were going to throw away. Well, I came out and piled just oodles of the stuff into my Prius, and because the lumber was perfectly good, why throw away perfectly good lumber? And I've been doing things to recycle it. One of the things I did was when my son and his sweetie were here, we started building a box for my chicken coop. I had a 6-year-old box in my chicken coop that I didn't make properly, and it was starting to fall apart. So we decided to build it using mostly recycled parts, and that was the old one that was falling apart. Oops, don't want to go there. And this is the new one. made partially from recycled Knox Maker lumber, and that's it, and that's it. And anyway, so, I mean, hey, it's April the 4th, it's gardening, right? Any questions? Yes?
How big are these tomatoes?
They're mostly cherry tomatoes. Some of them will get about the size of a golf ball. It really depends on the variety. Now, you know, people say I have a tendency to, that know me. No, if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. I'm growing 17 varieties of this right now. Plus, I forgot to show this is from last year. These are not micro dwarfs. These are dwarf tomatoes grown in bags. In the bags, I don't know if you can see it, not very well. They're cloth bags. These are dwarf tomatoes, and I've got 12 different varieties of those going right now. Those will grow maybe 3 feet tall, and they grow full-size tomatoes on them. I'm going to take a little bit, another minute here. The Dwarf Tomato Project was a citizen science project between America and Australia, where like 1,000 people got together and they decided they were going to breed regular tomatoes on small tomato plants. So instead of the, you know, like my celebrities or early girls will grow 12 feet tall, these things will only grow like 4 feet tall. And so the breeding project, if you want to breed an heirloom tomato, you've got to go through about 8 to 10 generations to get it. And that's in parts of America, you're not going to grow more than 2 generations in a year. So what they would do is they would grow the 2 generations here, send the seeds to Australia, and since it's summer there while it's winter here, they would grow 2 more generations, and they were able to accelerate the process. And now there's like 100, just any kind of tomato you might want, you can get a dwarf variety of it, version of it. And Victory Seeds has virtually all of them. The guy that headed up the project is also the guy that introduced the Cherokee purple tomato, if anybody familiar with that. So now any more questions? I'm running way too long. Yes, Amy.
Do they taste any different than normal tomatoes? How would you rate their taste?
Say again?
Do they taste different? How would you rate their taste?
The dwarf tomatoes, there's one called Adelaide Festival, the best tomato I have ever eaten. But this is personal. You know, it's a little stripy thing that I wasn't expecting much from, and it was like I bit into it. It's like, oh my God, this is what every tomato aspires to be. Now, my wife was like, you know, she liked another one better. But this one had, just to me, the right balance of sweetness and tartness. And it actually came from the regular sized tomato, was called a Berkeley tie-dye. And that kind of, you know, fits me anyway. So I like the Berkeley tie-dye, but the Adelaide grows. And the Tiny Tims that were originally for Christmas, they taste like cherry tomatoes. They're not like really outstanding, but they're better than anything you're going to get in a grocery store, I can promise you, unless you buy them in a grocery store. There was a question in the back. Yes?
On the dwarfs, when you're starting them in the house, what photo period are you using?
What?
What photo period are you using?
16 the lights are on 16 hours, and that's just arbitrary for me right now. I'm learning a lot, and I have got I'm getting new lights, and I'm just really learning a lot. So I may change that. One more question? No more questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. You will all be unsurprised to know that Joe is a certified master gardener, and so if you have questions along these lines, you could do worse than talking to him. Next up, we've got a new member, Rhubarb, first-time presenter, who's brought in a jewelry box to share with us tonight.
So when my wife and I first started dating, we played a game called Machinarium, and that's the cover art for the game. You play as the character on the left, and it has various abilities where you can grow and shrink his torso, as well as open up his head, and you can put items inside. And when it came time to get married, I bought a set of earrings for her, and I wanted to make a special jewelry box for her. So I created this guy. The torso is made out of a plunger-style measuring cup, so it could shrink and grow. The legs are made out of a toy necklace. The feet and hands are made out of a socket from a socket set. They're held in place by nuts. They're just tied onto the end of the necklace. The head itself is a soup can that was cut up. And it's able to open up, and you can put the earrings inside there. The eyes are also sockets. And the top of the head is a bell for like a call bell. Any questions? Sure. It was probably 2 weeks. I had to find the right things that looked like the character, so I tried a few different things.
Did she like it? Do you like it? Yes. I didn't want to assume you were the wife.
So he did it while I was on a 3-week business trip, and he videoed the whole thing and then made me a video.
Thank you.
That is heartwarming and delightful. Thank you for sharing that. Next up, we have Molly, who has glass cross problems to share.
Hi, I'm new here, and I forgot how much public speaking is not my thing until just a couple minutes ago. So I do stained glass, and I'm currently making ornaments out of this glass, which for a Baptist church in Granger County. They moved from their old church building to a new one, and they want mementos from the glass windows. And one lady would also like me to make a cross out of 6 full panes. They're 12 by 16. 6 full panes of this that she can hang on a hallway in her, in her house. And that's not a stained glass thing. I don't know of any copper foil that would hold that. So I need some assistance in trying to figure out if I can actually make this work. I've had a couple of ideas. Over here. So this is basically what she wants. She'd like 4 loops so that she can hang it in 4 points. I had thought that maybe a metal armature on the back side with sort of like, I don't know if you're familiar with plate hangers. They usually have like a spring and like hooks that grip from the back. I was thinking without spring because we probably don't want these. Well, how do I do that? Oh, here. There we go. There we go. So I was thinking, we don't want movement, so I was thinking probably no springs. So that was an idea. Another idea would be obviously to frame it in wood, almost like picture frames, like, like trimming wood with a groove in it or something. This is a really terrible drawing of wood with the groove. Somebody else mentioned maybe the potential of doing a mosaic, except that I don't know that there is any grout strong enough to hold pieces of glass like this. She's pretty insistent she wants full panes of glass. So I thought of you guys and thought maybe somebody would have some brilliant ideas that maybe they could throw my way. So if you got anything, let me know. Thank you.
We have to be careful asking for ideas at Knox Makers. So y'all seek Molly out after, and let's solve this. Next up, we got David, who's got some scrap metal art to share with us.
Hey y'all, I took Joe's scrap metal art this Sunday and made this little guy. It's a little crab. I had no clue what I was gonna make when I first walked through the door. I had found this gear on top in my backyard. And decided I would just incorporate that into whatever I decided to make. But then I came in and I looked around on the hack rack. I found a piece of crescent wrench here and another piece of steel over there, and there were some roller bearings in the metal shop that Joe let me use. So it just kind of, you know, growing up in the low country of South Carolina, we got little blue crabs running around all over the place, so that's what I ended up with.
What kind of welder did you use?
Most of it was done with a stick welder because I was using mixed metals. So I stick welded most of it, and those are the ugliest welds. And then I MIG welded the legs. So this, you know, is the stick welding versus the legs that look a little bit nicer. But still, I'm not sure if it would sit real. Will it take the weight?
You have insurance. 2 people said.
Yeah, this one, the bolt is attached, but it's got like a carriage. It's got like a carriage bolt going through the back of the roller, so it does kind of wobble a little bit. Yeah, like little googly eyes. You know. So I haven't named it, but anyway, I thought it turned out pretty good. Just thought I'd share. The rust station. The rust station. All right. I won't pass it around because there are sharp edges, but you know, I'll have it out front if y'all want to get a closer look at it later.
That's really swell. The scrap metal class always comes out with some really great results. That's always fun to see. Let's see, next up we have a secondary Joe who's got a punk rock jacket to share.
Hello, everybody. Okay, so this is my favorite band, Oingo Boingo. And I wanted another jacket. I have a couple of jackets that I painted before. I started this in the fall when it started to get cold, and I just finished it now that it's about to be summertime. So I guess, you know, but that's how it goes. But I used acrylic paint and mixed it with a medium that helps it to bind to the fabric. It's just like a fabric additive you add to it, and it's supposed to keep it on. But turned out okay. Oh. It's not the first time I've been a male model, but actually what you shouted out to me from the crowd is something that I could use help with. When I got it, the jacket, it didn't dawn on me that the hoodie would lay over the painting that I was doing. And the way that it's sewn on there, I'm a little bit scared to just use a seam ripper and take it out, but that's probably the answer. Anyways, if any of the fabric arts people could give me some tips on how to remove the hood without wrecking the coat, I would really appreciate it. So.
For the new folks tonight and honored guests, I'd just like to mention that Joe is our metalworking czar, and I think it's amazing how you can't pigeonhole anybody at Knox Makers. You know, that's awesome, man. finally, tonight we've got Bob, who has brought in finger joints on a table saw.
I love to make things with finger joints. I think it's just a super duper way to do it. And I've always been frustrated at trying to get them to be accurate and consistent and everything else. So one day I was talking about this project, and I had tried to make one using threaded rod and some wood pieces and a digital readout to where I could position the wood by turning the threaded rod so many turns and making a cut, because I wanted to use like a 1/8 inch wide blade, but I was making 1/2 inch cuts, so that's multiple passes. And how to automate this and have it be consistent and reliable. Yeah, that was a prototype, and it sort of worked and not. Well, come to Knoxville, and in square dancing, I got talking with a guy, and he said, you know what you need is a stepper motor. I said, I've never done anything with stepper motors. George here in the front assisted me with automating this thing and using a stepper motor. Now, each step is 4/10,000ths of an inch in forward motion. So I thought that should be accurate enough to do this. So George helped me with the electronics. I've got a Arduino Uno, I think, and of course, the stepper motor driver board, and I got a serial to port so that I can have my PC tell it what the steps are supposed to be, and then a little digital display. And that is, let's see, right down here. Where's the, and so there's some buttons that control forward and backward and that, and little meter to tell me the voltage and the amperage and the wire connections and everything. The PC here in the background, I had to write a computer program that would generate. So I would say, I've got a board 4 inches wide, and I want to do 1/3 of an inch fingers, and so it would compute how many steps that was, given a blade width of 2.61 millimeters wide, and how many cuts that would take and everything. And so then I would transmit that to this little unit here, and then that would actually drive the stepper motor into doing it. And this is the arrangement here. And the nice thing was that as I got into 3D printing, things were much more accurate and much more stable, because I could mount my motor and and I don't have a picture of it, but it's a triangular piece that fits in the way there that travels, and then the mount for the back end, and it all got to be straight and aligned and really perfect. And then this is from the other angle, and it's just a sled on the table saw, and that was the finished result. Now, you notice I had the wrong blade in the saw. I forgot to change it. I should have used a rip blade with a flat bottom cut. So the triple chip made the little saw shape there at the end. It took 13 minutes to do that whole thing, all of the sides and everything else, 13 minutes. And when I finished, well, actually, here, this is happening there. Push the button and make a cut, okay? Turn it over to make the cut on the other side, and then it'll advance. I push a button there. Let's see. Okay, put the wood in, push the button. Oh, I had 4 pieces of wood to do, I'm sorry. Okay, and then this skipped ahead because the whole thing was 13 minutes, and make the pieces. Turn the saw off, put the pieces together. I thought I was on camera because I thought it'd be so cool just to take it right off the saw and put it together. No sanding or anything else, but there you can see that I actually did it real time. There's the button. So I will pass this around and you can take a look at it. But I had an absolute blast doing this, and I'm so grateful to George. And he was so interested. He said, I want to find out more about this Makers thing, you know, because we have a lot of interests in common. So I brought him in here tonight to show him the facility. So.
How long did it take to build it?
How long did it take to build it? That's a good question. It took a while because, well, it was back and forth. I mean, we had the, well, the basic saw sled I had from the previous version. So then I had to 3D print the parts and get them to fit the stepper motor instead of my little threaded rod. And boy, was I surprised how inconsistent threaded rod is. It's not uniform. So that was that part. Then the computer program was half done already from the predecessor, and I had used my phone to do that. But anyway, so I got that program. Then George and I had to work on the programming for the Arduino to get that working and stepping properly, and that took. Yeah, it's probably, we've been at this for quite some time.
So if you didn't use threaded rod, is it belt driven?
The threaded rod was driven by a little thing at the end. I just had nuts, anchor points on each end, and then my carriage had 2 nuts glued into it, and then I would just drive it back and forth that way. Now the stepper motor with no backlash, with an anti-backlash nut on it, just is amazing because I have done this. I've run it down and told it to go back home, and it goes right back to the same spot. It's really fantastic. Yeah.
How did you set your blade height?
The blade height is set to the thickness of the wood. So I just lay a piece of wood down there, crank it up, and make it just a little bit taller, and that works.
Have you tried one with a ripping blade?
Yes, that's what I should have put on there.
You like that?
Yeah, I do. And well, of course, one of the things is that you can't measure the thickness of the carbide and get an accurate. I used to do that too. Try. So what I do is I take and make 5 cuts. The computer, you tell the computer what the nominal blade width is, 1/8 of an inch. It generates a procedure for 5 cuts, okay? And then you take out the 4 pieces in the middle, stack them up and measure it. And then you measure the gap, total gap. Take the difference of those 2 and divide by 5. That's your blade width. And that has worked really well. So that was one of the things that I had to overcome. The computer program will handle, if I wanted to put a dado blade in there and run 1/4 inch wide, it would handle it. You know, I tried to make it as flexible as I could. Any other questions? Well, thank you all.
Thank you very much for sharing that. That's a really cool and clearly successful project. That's real fancy. I've got a few announcements to share with y'all this evening before we conclude. First of all, I want to bring you up to date. I'm sorry, Sean has something. It's Sean.
Hello. This is part show, part announcement. Some of you may remember perler beads or fuse beads. You might have had them growing up or whatever. My partner not that long ago won a prize pack for a pack of Star Wars ones, which is right up my alley. And so we started messing around with those a little bit, and they had some cool patterns. And so I started getting really into Star Wars perlers, fuse beads. And so I started with, you know, the patterns they give you, and there were some cool ones. Darth Vader, Stormtrooper. I started to learn the tricks. You can kind of maybe not see that one, not very shiny, a little bit of shine here and there, but that's because I ironed it with parchment paper. But then if you could see, that one has a nice sheen to it, and that's with like an acetate sheet, so you get a really nice shine on that. So I started with that, with the 2D patterns there, X-Wing, and then started experimenting and adapting them for 3D. And so I have the walker there, which I made a stand for, so that can stand up, and it started getting a little larger. Got Boba Fett there, and that'll stand up as well, and made that stand. And then I started branching out into some larger ones with maybe some motion. So I got this skeleton, which is posable and glows in the dark. And so, yeah, so this one, and it glows pretty well. I'm actually really surprised at how well these beads glow. And I just made little connectors out of some wire. And then I decided, well, I had to start designing my own patterns. And so immediately jumped from small things like this to just a 4-panel Knox Makers logo. 3,344 beads was what it took to do this. There are programs online where you can upload your own design. I did, and it comes out kind of sloppy because it's trying to turn an image into round pixels that will then turn into squares again when you iron it, so it's weird, but so I had to kind of adapt it on my own. But I was really surprised at how they came out, and only lost like a few of them here and there, and I did some gluing just to kind of seal it. I got to find a better backing because it is too fragile just to lift up on its own. But yeah, so this was my the biggest thing I've done to date, and that took 4 panels, but I have more, so I'm currently building an even larger one that you might see in the future. So yeah. And speaking of these, we are sort of restarting. If you've been here long enough, you might remember our sort of adult arting classes, sort of social crafting hangouts we would do on Friday nights. And we are sort of restarting those now, and with a little nostalgia bent. So this Friday, we will be doing sort of a crafting social with these perlers. So it's $10 for members, $15 for the public, and just come out and hang out. It's just sort of a time to socialize. We got all the materials, everything ready for you, and it starts at 7:30, and you can get the tickets on the events page on the website. So I hope to see you all out there. That's this Friday, 7:30. So come and hang out and do some nostalgia tripping with us. All right, thank you.
Boy, that was some pro-level pandering to your audience right there. A jointed skeleton and a Knox Makers logo. You have my heart. Don't think you actually said, just to remind folks, adult arting does permit the consumption of adult beverages, if that's a thing you're into, within sensibility. You know, don't get sloppy, and there's no using of power tools. But if you want to bring a few beers and enjoy those while you pearl and watch the A-Team, then that is all right. I feel like that James wants my attention. James, you have something? Come on up here, sir.
Hey, I'm James. I've been doing these little. Tracy turned me onto this. These little LED bases. and they come with these little acrylic blanks, and you can use Inkscape, make designs, have the laser cutter do it, and it glows up pretty good. So I've got a couple projects. I've been doing these. I had to measure the circle ones. I'm still not great at because I'm not sure how to position it. I'm gonna have to make some kind of jig for the circle ones, but the square ones are pretty easy. Just measured that, set the canvas in Inkscape, and then when I set the acrylic down, I can just set the laser at 0, 0 on the bottom left corner, and then it goes to town, and it usually gets it pretty good. But I got a couple. If I have time tonight, later on, I've got 2 assignments I've been tasked with. One of my friends, her daughter drew some stick figures, and I guess I'm supposed to convert those in Inkscape, maybe using Trace Bitmap or something. I've got a few methods if that doesn't work out, and if all fails, I'll go to GIMP, which is, if you don't know, GIMP is an open source version of Photoshop, free and open source. So I'll figure something out, but I want to try to convert those stick figures to put on there for her. And then another friend, I really love the idea of not pigeonholing makers, and I love Oingo Boingo, but another friend has asked me to do something with Wu-Tang Clan for an acrylic, so I guess I'm doing that too. And then I've also got one more thing. I talked about this before, this We the Builders. I was able to print my piece with some help from friends. Andrew definitely helped me out. But what they're doing, if you're familiar, they did this before years ago. They did Rosie the Builder, and they took this huge sculpture of Rosie the Builder, broke it out into 3D cubes for each piece, and you go online, download a part, print it, send it back to them. And it was multicolor, it was great. They toured around museums and all kinds of stuff. Well, this one they're doing as a burner project, and it's an LED transparent unicorn. So it's clear acrylic, or not acrylic, clear 3D prints, PLA, ABS is I think fine, but I did PLA because that's all that was there. And the idea is they've got tracks of wiring layered into it, and they're going to do LEDs to glow out of the unicorn. They got patterns and all kinds of stuff. It's due they need to be shipped by, I think, April 23rd. They need to be received by April 23rd. So if anybody's interested in doing this, it's pretty easy. You just go on there, download your part, print it, and ship it to them. You have to mark the X, Y, and Z layers so they know where it goes and everything. But they got all the instructions right there. If you want to be a part of that, there's 356 parts still left to claim, so we're kind of running out of time. So that's all I got.
All right, thank you, James. Yes, sir. Step on up.
Never worked this thing before. All right, this is my new camera I built. It's a Sony Alpha. I'm just kidding, I did not build that. Let's see. Zoom out. There we go. So, Tracy taught the laser authorization course, which has been pretty sweet. Been messing around with that. I like to build practical things, so not that everybody's stuff is not awesome in its own right. However, I built my dog laser cut him a collar because the PetSmart, their collar thing, etcher, was broken. And so I came up with this and then sanded it down and stained it with some gun stock stain and then put polyurethane on it. So he took a bath with that today, unbeknownst to me. And then this is actually my mom's logo. She's a beekeeper. And yeah, I learned the Trace Bitmap feature and was able to pull it up. It's not anything super complicated, but just wanted to show my progress and just, so it was cool. And I was happy with what I was able to come up with. So cool, thanks.
All right. Any other shares that didn't make it on the list today? Step on up. you may be next.
This is from the Cattywampus. I don't know if anyone else participated, but it's just something we made real quick in like 2 days. We used the box and paper mache for his costume. Just a little goblin guy with a sword, and we went with the Cattywampus with our homeschool group. And that's one of their other projects. The other families at the chicken, and they use like an umbrella in the middle. But that's all. I'm just sharing our contribution to the figures thing.
That is swell. I never forget the first time I ran into those Cattywampus people at an event downtown, just like a normal art showing, and suddenly these giant-headed people just like wandered in, and everybody was just like, I mean, it's so wonderful to have that moment of surreality when you're not expecting it. I love that. Anybody else got anything for us this evening? Okay. Wanted to remind you of a few events that we've got coming up. Tomorrow evening, from 6:30 to 8:30 is the Electronic Zone Custom Macro Keyboard Class Part 7. It is far too late to get involved now, but that is a thing that's happening, and you can lament having missed it and look forward to future cool classes. Friday, however, we have an introduction to TIG welding, which includes plasma cutting, which is, of course, happening in metalworking. That's from 6:30 until 9. That class does require either you're having prior welding experience or having taken the 101 class, but there are still tickets available. So if you need to learn about TIG welding and or hand plasma cutting, this is your chance. Also on Friday from 7:30 to 9:30 is Sean's Nostalgia Trip, where we'll be doing the fusible beads, what with the adult crafting action, and there are tickets available for that as well. Promises to be a swell time. Also want to remind you that next Tuesday, after our usual program, we'll be doing a new members onboarding here in the classroom. So if you are currently on track to become a member, but you haven't been a new member onboarding yet, if you're thinking about becoming a member, or if you're already a member and you just want to meet some new folks and hang out with us, more than welcome to do so. I also wanted to let y'all know about the upcoming Knox Makers Market. Some of you may recall the Maker Market that we did last year, which was an amazing success. Out here in the parking lot, we had hundreds and hundreds of people come visit us. We had over 40 vendors who had set up tables, and the whole thing was just a beautiful celebration of making. Everything that was sold there was handmade by the vendors themselves, and it was a cool chance for the general public to see making and makers in action, and many of them chose to come in and get tours of our workshop, some of whom have become community members with us here today. So we're going to do this again, and I think we're all looking forward to it. June 11th is the day, and it is approaching rapidly, but market applications are now open for Knox Makers members. So if you make things and you would like to sell those things at the Knox Makers Market, then I encourage you to do that. You can go to market.knoxmakers.org to sign up. And we have special pricing for members. It's only $20 if you want a table. General public has to pay $40. So if you want to get involved with that, reserve your spot now. Also be thinking, if you're not somebody who makes stuff and wants to vend them, you might like to volunteer and help make the market happen. That's what I did last year, and I thought that was actually a lot of fun. So that's an opportunity as well. Remember, our volunteer coordinator, Russell, is the fellow to talk to, or possibly Aliki, who is fabulously running the market for us this year. Either or both of them can get you plugged in if you're willing to contribute your efforts to make it wonderful once again. Also wanted to give you all a little update. As hopefully most of you are aware, we put in a letter of intent with the upcoming Transforming Western Development Project. This is the thing that's happening in the Western Heights area, where they're rebuilding this section of town, including constructing a big new sort of community center. A community center that wants to have in it a fabulous makerspace. A fabulous makerspace that originally we were consulting on, and now they're hoping we'll move into. That may or may not be in our future. There's a lot of time and a lot of road between here and there. but it's a real possibility, and it could change our lives if so. At any rate, what I wanted to let you know about is several of the board members attended a kickoff session last week for that project, which was a meeting among all of the folks who had signed up to be part of it. They have gotten almost every bit of funding that they were seeking for that project, and they've now hired somebody to run it. And so it looks like those gears are starting to turn, and we've been given to understand that we should expect to have some meetings with them soon, maybe even start working with an architect. So there's a lot of potential there. There's also a lot of time for things to fall completely to shambles. Who knows what's going to happen, but we will keep you abreast as these things develop. We are, of course, an all-volunteer organization, as hopefully you all know and keep to heart. So I need somebody to check on the air filters tonight. Who's willing to do that for me? Thank you very much. And would somebody be willing to take out the trash for us tonight? Who's on trash detail? All right, that's you. Thank you very much. Finally, let me just mention that we have with us tonight a group of students who are actually studying maker spaces. If y'all wouldn't mind raising your hands, I hope you all just sort of say hey, make them feel welcome. If they got any questions. Their instructor actually wrote her dissertation about our organization and about our community and became a member. How magic is that? So this is a lovely, lovely group of folks, and I hope that you will encourage them and give them lots of information. Finally, if you're new tonight, and several of you evidently are, make sure you get a tour. Make sure you get any questions you might have answered. Anybody with a red badge would be happy to help you. Other than that, though, let's go out in the shop, do weird stuff, and have fun. Thanks for being with us tonight.